Hello and welcome to today's session. I want to congratulate you for taking the time to appreciate this online material that we've so meticulously, packaged for you, so you can sort of digest these issues of strategy and strategy execution, how you will position yourself, all the issues that have to do with how you execute an intended strategy that has been well articulated. How do you position yourself? How do you position your team? All of that is what is going to come through from this course. And so we will be talking about execution, and most importantly, we will be infusing entrepreneurship, calling from entrepreneurial concepts and thinking and models that can help you stand out more as a leader in your own corner. What is it that successful entrepreneurs have done that you can incorporate as an entrepreneur within your organization as you help the organization achieve higher levels of success, and as you help your own team achieve higher levels of success? We are going to also be helping you see the benefit to you of executing strategy and incorporating entrepreneurial thinking and methodologies as you carry out your day-to-day tasks. So I hope you'll find this class useful. We will be dealing today with strategy execution imperatives. And before we do, I just want to highlight the key learning points that I want you to draw from today's class. The first learning point that I want you to pick out is the importance of strategy as well as the importance of strategy execution, because these are two different things. What role or benefit do we get from formulating strategy, and what benefits do we derive from actually executing the strategy? So that's the first one that I want you to pick out. Secondly, I want you to appreciate a bit more specifically what benefits accrue to the organization from the execution of strategy, as well as what benefits accrue to you as an individual in your own personal development, personal career development. What benefit would you get from executing strategy effectively? And then the third one is that I want you to understand, at least for us to have a discussion around the challenges of executing strategy. Why is it that we normally have strategy that is written, it's well articulated, we have sessions around strategy, and then when it comes to actually implementing the strategy, it's like all hell breaks loose? What are the challenges that we normally encounter in organizations that prevent us from actually implementing our strategy? And then finally, just out of left field, we've decided to include the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. This is a concept that I felt was very important for us to highlight at this level in your course, so that you can appreciate the role of your mindset in strategy execution, and sort of the one that obviously would encourage you to adopt for your own development and for the success of strategy execution. So our starting point, I would argue, is just an understanding of strategy, so that we are all on the same page about what strategy is, because I know that there are many schools of thought around what strategy is, but if we can converge in our understanding of strategy, then at least we'll have laid a foundation going forward as we discuss strategy. Well, the general one that we all somewhat subscribe to generally is about strategy being a high-level plan that we put in place to achieve long-term goals under conditions which are not known, conditions which are uncertain. So it's that high-level plan. How do we get to our long-term goals, knowing full well that we don't know the conditions that we're going to be, going through in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years, depending on the period. So it's that high-level plan. So, but there are those who say strategy is not just purely a plan. So that is why I was saying there are many nuances and schools of thought around strategy definition. A plan is just to say, well, I'm going to go from here to a particular city, maybe city A to city B. That's my general plan. But there are those who say it's the integrated set of choices that you make along the way that position you or your organization in your industry to win. So it's not just about I'm going from city A to city B. It's about what sort of set of choices am I going to be making, and how do they interlink along the way in order to navigate me in this industry in a way that I win. So I think that those are the two that we can work with, and I know that there are many definitions that we can take. But for me, it's important that strategy is articulated in a very clear way. It shouldn't be something that's too complex. Even when we facilitate strategy strategy formulation sessions, it's always important for me that at the end of the day, a strategy is something that's easy to communicate, easy to understand, so that people can actually implement it, which is the core of what we'll be discussing today. So strategy itself is a set of choices that we put in that plan and putting them together to get us from where we are to where we want to go and to win at the end of the day. So what is the purpose of the strategy really? Why must we have a strategy in place? Remember, an organization is not that building that you have, that you're working in. An organization cannot also be assumed to just be the clients that you serve. It's just a collective of individuals in there in the organization that we have all come together from the top all the way to the bottom to achieve what? When we make decisions every day, what are we trying to achieve? What's informing how I make decisions? Am I making decisions to favor me or to favor my team, my department? Am I making decisions to favor the clients? Am I making decisions to favor the landlord who owns the building? It's very important that we have a strategy that sort of defines for us what's what, so that we can then, it can be the one that guides our decision making every day and makes us, you know, in a sense, become congruent towards a particular set direction. So it guides every day as we make decisions that this is the general direction that we've agreed we're going. These are the general goals that we've achieved. So we agreed we are going to. So it's the one that drives decision making. It's the one that informs our decision making, but also it's also the one that helps us in channeling resources. Remember that we have time. What are we going to spend our time on? Time is a resource. We have maybe some finances. What are we going to spend our finances on? And finances or resources of any nature are finite. They are not, you know, overflowing to infinity. We have finite resources. Where do we channel our resources and when? So the decision on resource distribution is going to be guided by the strategy. So maybe let's just highlight the key components of a strategy that we all know. The first one is the vision and perhaps the mission as well. The vision is that desired future state at this point, maybe in 5 years. This is where we would like to see ourselves, and you clearly articulate that future state, you know. So it's usually got to be very defined. It shouldn't be just a wish, you know. It should say we want to look like 1, 2, 3, or we want to be at 1, 2, 3 state, so that people can, you know, in a crystal way identify what we want to look like in that future state. And also the mission, some people call it the purpose. It's really just defining why the company exists. So we all need to be on the same page about why this organization even exists, because it shouldn't be taken for granted that, oh, we understand. I mean, we are a hospital. Everybody knows why we exist as a hospital. No. It's very important that we define so that we all are understanding it the same way, in the same words even, so that the picture is clear. Why do we exist? Who do we exist to serve? Generally, how do we claim we exist to serve those people? So it needs to be defined. So that's basically the vision and the mission. Another component of strategy is the goals and objectives. Basically, it's saying, let us define for ourselves what those specific outcomes are that we want to achieve. Let's try to be specific. Let's not say we want to grow. Those are not objectives and goals. We want to be bigger. Those are not objectives. So we want to try and be a bit more specific. We want to grow our sales or our revenue by 10% each year or each month. So at least there the goal of the objective is a bit more specific, so people can know. You don't want to end up coming to your colleagues and saying, we failed. We failed to achieve what we set out for, when it was never defined for people, when it was never specific. If you say to people, we want to grow, and then you grow in numbers, you know, what do you mean? So it needs to be specific, so that also my understanding of growth could be different from your understanding of growth, and we're serving the same organization. So let's be specific enough for people to understand. The other component of strategy that we all know is the action plans. And we're going to be talking a lot more about that in this course, is the action plans. What are those, initiatives that we've put in place for ourselves to achieve that goal that we've set for ourselves? So what are we going to do? The main projects and the mini projects that feed up to that, what are they, so that we can sort of action towards achieving the strategy? So that is in general what strategy is all about. This is not a strategy formulation class, and if it was, I would be expounding a bit more on what strategy formulation looks like. I just wanted to be sure that we are on the same page about understanding strategy. So let's just sum up a little bit about what the importance of strategy is. First and foremost, strategy gives us direction and focus. We need to know in which direction are we pulling. Imagine if everybody in the organization is doing their best. Everybody feels that they are pulling, and indeed it's beyond the feeling. They actually are pulling their weight and putting in effort. The question is, in which direction? What are we focused on achieving? So strategy provides that direction so that everybody, regardless of what department they're in, they know the general direction in which we are going. So there's a clear roadmap about where we are going, and then we can all focus in that direction. That also helps. If you are going to accuse one another of not being focused, we know what we mean because the direction was set. The other one that makes a strategy important is the resource allocation. We want to be clear about where do we put resources, so we don't start wasting time, we don't start wasting money, we don't start wasting even knowledge. All the key resources that we have as an organization, they need to be channeled in an optimal way towards a specific direction. So without strategy, all of that is not possible. It also allows us to set our competitive advantage. We need to define for ourselves who are we, especially as far as it relates to clients. What sets us apart from the competition? What do we want the client to see us as opposed to what perhaps the competition is offering? So it helps us to be specific about our positioning in the client's mind versus our competition. The other one is strategy enables us to adapt. The very premise for why we're talking about strategy execution is the understanding that the world is changing. Whether we like it or we don't, or we see it or we don't, the world is constantly changing. And as the world is changing, including your client preferences and desires, they are constantly changing. Today, in the advent of technology and social media, client needs are changing every day. So the world is changing. As an organization, we need to be seen to be adapting. As an individual, leading a team or leading yourself, you need to be seen to be adapting, to be changing as the world is changing, to respond to all those changes in the environment, as well as to proactively, preempt the changes, act before the changes even happen. So we need to be adaptable. That is where strategy becomes very important. It sort of helps us sit here and anticipate what could be coming, and we start pivoting accordingly. So we'll discuss a bit more on that when we're talking about execution. And then the last one that I want to highlight in the importance of strategy is employee alignment, making sure that everybody who is in the organization knows the general direction that we're trying to go. Remember, we spoke about direction and focus, and knows where to put their resources, the time. Remember, even employees themselves are human resources. So we need to make sure they are all aligned in the general direction of achieving our organizational goals. So this is why setting a strategy is important. Now, while setting a strategy is important, we need to understand that it's not enough to just have strategy on paper, and that's what we are building towards discussing. And I want to highlight at this very point something that I normally really, I don't know if I can say I've struggled with early on in my years in strategy management, is for people to understand the strategy management process itself. So the strategy formulation, I'll just sort of take you on a bit of a little cycle of the process to understand it. The strategy formulation, and we could unpack it on how it is that we formulate strategy, how we engage other people, how we consult our team members, our board members, process. So there's the formulation process itself. It's the activity of formulating strategy. We could also break down, like I said, this is not the class for strategy formulation where we talk about analyzing the environment, setting our priorities, setting our objectives, our initiatives, and our action plans. So basically that's the formulation of strategy. And then we go on to cascading the strategy. So when you're cascading the strategy, you're engaging lower level departments and different divisions in the company, all the way to the individuals, regardless of where about they are in the organization, so they know how it is that they're plugging and playing in that strategy. So we're cascading it, and sometimes even engaging external stakeholders so they are supporting us in our quest. And then there is the strategy implementation, which is the core of this course that we are discussing here. Is how do you take that beautiful strategy that was articulated well, that was agreed and packaged well, and make it our day-to-day action. So that is implementation of the strategy. Then once we are implementing the strategy, we want to pause occasionally. We will discuss the frequency here to review, to evaluate whether or not we are going where we wanted to go with the strategy, whether or not we are achieving the things that we said we wanted to achieve and at the times that we said we wanted to achieve them. So here we're reviewing the strategy. Now the strategy review itself could help us just pivot a little bit and just keep going with the same strategy that we have, or maybe decide we're going to pick up the pace, etc. Or it can call for a complete strategy refresh, which is also a particular activity in strategy management. Where it's a strategy refresh, you may be feeling like a lot has changed in the environment, the external environment. Maybe there are new opportunities, maybe there are newer threats that we want to curb, or so you want to maybe pivot a little bit from the original strategy as it is, but you don't want to change it altogether. So maybe you could be not wanting to change it because you still want to give it the full 5 years of operation, or 10 years, depending on how long you set it for. So you want to do a refresh so that your strategy is fully adaptable and fully responsive and relevant in the time. So that's a strategy refresh. And then even with that refreshed strategy, you still want to review and evaluate that strategy and continue to consult your people, give feedback and look at the results and let the data drive and inform you. So then we can go back to formulating the strategy after the full cycle has come. So the frequency on how often we do this is something that we can agree depending on also our reporting lines and reporting times, etc. The reason I'm explaining the strategy process is so that you understand when we are making our discussion on strategy execution, which part of the strategy management process we are. The mistake I used to make in the past is I would call in team members when we are maybe doing strategy review, and it would be an announcement that we're coming to do strategy review and evaluation. Here we are, I'm presenting that we're going to be doing a review, we're going to be measuring our goals versus what we have achieved, etc., and seeing whether or not it's working. However, team members will come with the expectation that we are going for a strategy session, not really careful to say which part of the strategy management process are we talking. So we are here reviewing, and people are lifting their hands to contribute new strategies, contribute new initiatives, contribute, and here we are just doing our strategy review and evaluation. We are here to reflect, we are here to ponder on the issues. It's not that we are wasting time. We have to know what's going on, what's working and what's not, and why it's not working or why it's working, whether or not it's delivering what we had agreed, and what we need to do going forward. Do we need to refresh our strategy? Do we need to tweak? So people need to know first and foremost the importance of this reflection period, or this reflection session, this evaluation, the review of what we've been doing. It's not a waste of time, and even if it's a somber moment, it's a relevant somber moment so we can reflect on our work. So it's important that when we now talk about strategy execution in this course, that you understand that we have zeroed in on that part that is called execution. Yes, you may want to come in for a different course, maybe where we talk about formulation and how to formulate strategy more effectively. That can be a different discussion. But once the strategy is beautifully articulated, it's been formulated, and sometimes it has been cascaded to people and they know what they're supposed to do, What happens there? Why is it that they are then not able to do or to execute, to action in line with that strategy as agreed? That is where we are coming in. That is the meat of our course. So let me just draw your attention to execution, strategy versus execution, so that we can just see sort of where I want your focus to be in your mind. First and foremost, strategy itself, as we have discussed, it's addressing the what and the why. So it's basically saying what, in a sense, at the vision level, what do we want to be? At the goals level, objective level, what do we want to achieve? What percentage are we talking about? What increase are we looking at? So it's defining the what and the why, the purpose. Why do we exist? Why must we pivot? Why? So it's giving us a purpose, it's giving us a general understanding of the meaning behind what we are doing. So it's important to see that the strategy there is defining long-term goals. It's defining the longer-term outlook. What are we trying to achieve in the longer term? What are we trying to be in the longer term? That's why visions normally start with to be this, that, the other. So it's the what and why do we exist? Why do we serve these people? Why do we want to grow? So we're talking about the what and the why in the longer term outlook. And then when it comes to execution, now implementing the strategy on the ground, we are now looking at how and when. How is about the formula, the approach, the action plan. So we need to break it down to say, we see that the picture is rosy. How do we want to get there? So it's important to get the how. If I'm going to work with this person, how do I work with that person? If I'm going to get this to the other side, how do I get that thing to the other side? So it's important now we fully define the how. At this stage, even the projects or the initiatives that we have put down, as beautiful as they look on paper, somebody needs to sit down and sort of break down the how it's going to be done and the when it's going to be done. So when we talk about when, we're putting a little bit of urgency to it, so that if it's a 5-year strategy, it's not sitting in the drawer for years without us looking at it, and then on the last year we're looking at it and saying, oh, actually we need to go and do another strategy formulation. So the when of each initiative then puts a bit of urgency, so people can then get in the process of execution, and it also creates imperative. When are we doing this? So it's not just talk. So the how and the when. And I know that there are those who try, even on the strategy document, to sort of stipulate who is going to do what. So it's important that even though you've put who, it's usually just responsible executives or responsible heads who will be taking certain initiatives. So at this point, when we now talk about execution, even those people who have been put there as responsible for that initiative or for that objective need to then break down the how. How is it going to get done? Because if it's not broken down, then we're not executing. If we don't say how, then we have no intention of executing. As soon as we say how, and it's clear, we do 1, 2, 3, this is how we're doing it, and when, and we put this date, that date, by December, by June, you know, or this one May and this one here July, so that at least we don't lag. So as soon as we put the how and the when, we have switched on to strategy execution, and you can see that it's more short-term to medium term. It's not long-term and general like the strategy. Execution speaks about more short-term and medium-term execution or goals or plans or actions. So it sort of brings it down so that we can, in a sense, chew the big giant one piece at a time. So in the shorter term, what are we supposed to do? In the medium term, what are we doing? So how and when. That is execution. So it's important for us to see the interdependence as well of strategy and execution. Strategy itself without execution is useless. Why are we putting a beautiful strategy? And I know that most of us are very guilty of the excitement around strategy formulation. We engage people, we go for beautiful retreats. That season itself can be very beautiful, and it's also almost like a dreaming session. We talk about what could be, and we throw on these beautiful ideas of what could be, which is a good thing. It even, I think it injects new sense of hope and, zeal in the team. But then beyond just strategy, what about execution? So that's why we're saying strategy without execution is just a dream. It's just a dream sheet. But then execution itself without strategy, it's directionless. You will find yourself wasting energy, wasting time, wasting effort, and resources will be depleted before you know it, because you're executing with no direction. So that is where we're highlighting the interdependence of strategy and execution. And it's important that those who drive strategy must understand that they are nothing, absolutely nothing, without the executors of strategy. And it's important for everybody to know their role in executing the strategy itself, so that we don't start thinking that others are more important in the organization than others, or others are playing a better role than others. Yes, there are those who come with higher accountability that is put on them, and those who have accountability sort of being padded in a sense. But everybody at the end of the day must know what their role is in strategy and in execution, because these are interdependent, and we'll talk about that accountability issues and roles and responsibilities a bit later in execution. So I just wanted to share a few statistics as well. I'm laughing because some of the results that we're seeing from the studies which are being made in strategy and strategy execution especially, I found very entertaining. The first one was talking about, this was a study that was done on, I think it was about 47,373 or 71 global leaders. So it was actually a good substantial number of leaders who participated in this study, and they found that female leaders, they rated significantly more positively on execution, which is an interesting statistic, that women in this, according to this study, not according to me, they get it done, they get the job done. They get the job done. So I thought that was an interesting statistic. For me, I would say as a manager, this helps in you understanding it's not a sexist position, and we're not citing this study for you to, in a sense, adopt a sexist approach to strategy execution. It's also for you to be aware of the strengths that your team has, so you can play sort of to the strengths that in this case it shows that females have in executing. And usually we even talk about multitasking. It's like females have some natural endowment to multitasking. So it's not to take a sexist position, but also to play to the strengths that I guess are being revealed here by this study, and also to know when you have your male counterparts how you can form a team, a project team, so that you can all be bringing in your strengths, because our male counterparts were not lagging too far behind. It was like a 53-47 kind of statistic. So the other one that I found interesting was that supervisors were scoring or rating highly on execution. And this is supervisors who were surpassing middle management and executive or senior management. So it means strategy execution gets a bit more real as we go lower in the organizational structure. So those who are at the supervisory level, way below the managers, were the ones who were, scoring higher on execution. And why does that matter for you as a leader? It's important for you to understand that, wow, so if my people, the ones who are working with me somewhere there at the bottom, are scoring so highly on execution, it means these are the people who are truly doing the day-to-day work and you start valuing them as such, and you start empowering them as such. So we'll be talking about those things as the course unfolds, talking about the sort of feedback, the sort of support that you give. So it's important that we share these statistics so you can see the people who are scoring high on execution being your supervisors, your senior officers at the sort of the bottom of the hierarchy, organizational hierarchy. The other one was talking about the geographical, rating on strategy execution, and at the top was the USA and China, and surprisingly, Africa was somewhere at the bottom. I say surprisingly because you see, it's an I would say it's a debatable issue, although this was a study, so we shouldn't try to, I guess, fight with the data that's right in front of us and maybe confront what we need to do at a mindset level. But there's always this underlying connotation of Africans being lazy. But I feel that the more we bring information like the one we're bringing today as to the imperative for execution and even how to execute, it also helps to get Africa moving from where we are in terms of strategy execution to where we need to be. So it could also be just the knowledge gap there, because Africans, I would argue, are very hardworking. I would argue that, Africans built many beautiful countries. So there's an argument there that in terms of hard work, I think we cannot doubt Africans. So maybe if we put in the information that's needed as well as the skill to execute and know how to execute, then we can see that statistics sort of changing. So I thought to share these statistics and sort of what they imply for us to be aware of as managers and senior managers in strategy execution. Let's now build or drill down into this issue of strategy execution and why it is so important. What is the imperative for strategy execution? What's the pressing need? Why does it matter for us to take that strategy that we have and execute it, make sure that we actually execute it? The first point that I want to emphasize is just to bridge that gap. But the gap between that time where the consultant leaves the building. Remember, normally we bring in consultants from outside to help us build strategy. And I like how normally organizations are very engaged. They engage the consultant. You really build this thing with the consultant. So the argument around whether the consultant is the one bringing these ideas and the consultant is not aware of what people can and cannot do, I feel it's a shaky argument. Usually consultants come in and they engage individuals within the organization, and it's usually strategy that's built together. The gap exists between that time when that strategy has been approved now at the board and it's time to go back into our offices in the absence of consultants, and we have to execute. We have to start actioning on that strategy. It usually just lands in our desks or in that secured that password secured document that you cannot go into. So that is the gap that we're trying to bridge. When does execution happen to ensure that all those beautiful visions, all those dreamy places that we spoke about, all the dreamy outcomes that we desire for the organization are actually realized in reality, that you and I can see and pinpoint and say, wow, look at something that we had wanted for this organization is actually happening. The gap in there, they normally say the gap between your dreams and your reality is action. That gap is action. So that is what we're trying to do by emphasizing strategy execution, strategy action. In other words, is to bridge that gap. And the other reason that we're laying this discussion as a foundation is to say that execution drives performance. It's the one that says, okay, so we did say in our strategy formulation that our baseline is here. This is where we are in sales. This is where we are in operational excellence. Then if we want to get to this place where the sales are higher, operational excellence is higher, in whatever matrices that we can discuss, for us to get ourselves to that higher level, which is higher performance, it's through execution. It's through doing. It's not through how well we speak, how articulate we are, what jargon we use. It's about action, action, action. That is what drives performance. That is what we're going to see collectively pushing the bottom line up. our profits going up. It's through action, action, action. The action that we take post the strategy formulation. It's not the wishful thinking anymore. It's not the articulation anymore. It's about what do we do and how do we do it and when do we do it. So that is what drives performance on a day-to-day. It could be profit, that is your bottom line. And if you are a non-profit or not-for-profit organization, it could be about driving that impact higher. So you want to improve your profits or you want to improve your impact. That's higher performance. Where you were, the bottom line or the baseline was here. So now how do we move from the baseline to that desired position? Is through action. The next point that I want to emphasize, it is competitive advantage. You know, sometimes I don't know how well to articulate this. The world is very competitive today. Technology has made matters even worse, but it's something that we can leverage. If we work on our strategy and we say this is where we would like to be, those who act quickly on those opportunities or on those strategy initiatives that would have been identified are the ones who can then dominate in the marketplace. If you don't action, it doesn't matter that on the same day or the same week that you were formulating strategy, your competitors were also formulating same strategies, seeing same opportunities, faced with same threats. Those who can seize the market opportunities and those who can dominate the market are those who will action. So ideas are a dime a dozen. Everybody has them. There's nothing unique about the ideas you have. Let's not lie to one another. It's about those who will action on those ideas and action with speed. And we'll discuss that later. Those that will actually then, outpace the competition, that will dominate the market and that will seize those market opportunities. So action, 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 execution, execution, execution. That's what gives you competitive advantage, so that you can sort of address opportunities as you would have identified them, address opportunities as you will have seen them. And like I'm saying, remember this phrase, ideas are a dime a dozen. So if you have one pula or 1 rand or what currency you use, that one can buy you 12 ideas. That's what it means by ideas are a dime, an entire dozen. So you can get many ideas, but it's how we then execute them. That's what sets us apart from the competition. It's those who outpace the others that will actually seize the opportunities and dominate the market. So the other point that I want to raise is about risk mitigation. Really, when you plan strategy execution well, you're able to identify what could go wrong, identify possible issues early on so you can address them and keep going. So later when we talk about how to execute your strategy, we'll be talking about identifying and being able to address issues that you see in a particular project early on. So it's only then when we're executing that we're able to mitigate risks. Remember, when we draw up a strategy, we'll always say these are the risks that we think are associated with this strategy. Yeah. So you're able to then tell ahead of time the sort of risks that we are, in a sense, fighting against. Yes. So if we do not action, if we don't execute the strategy, we are given those risks an opportunity of turning into reality. We are also given them an opportunity to grow bigger than where they were. But only if we take action are we able to curb those risks. And if we take action speedily and in the right way, we can identify and address issues early on. And that's what risk management and risk mitigation really is all about. And I want to emphasize on that point that it's important that we know if we don't curb those risks through action, we risk catastrophic strategic failure. And I'm saying catastrophic because sometimes we don't know how bad strategic failure can be. Even at an individual level, there are people who say, oh, strategy is for executives at the top, or strategy is for the chief executive officer on what he or she says to the board. No, it's important that even at individual level, we know that we will be part of the catastrophe that comes when we suffer epic failure. It could be issues of loss of market share. It could be issues of loss of even brand strength. So there are issues, and then it could trickle down to even retrenchments or salary cuts or lost bonuses. So it does come to affect you personally, where you'll see that, oh my God, I have been in this train and it was moving and I was not participating in keeping it going. Now it has stopped, we must hop off. Or now it has crashed and we're all feeling the effects of it. I'm sorry for being graphic, but I need to show that if we don't actively mitigate risks through action or strategy execution, the more we allow for it to materialize as a risk or as risks, then we stand a higher chance of suffering strategic failure, which can be catastrophic for the organization and for the individuals within it. The other one that I feel is important for us to focus on is organizational alignment. So when we are executing strategy, we know that it's not going to be the top, the person with the last accountability, who is the executive, the top executive, CEO, general manager, or the executive director, however you refer to them, the managing director. It's also all of us who are in this train that's moving. Remember, how are we aligning ourselves to know which parts of the strategy we are to execute? So I feel like it's during execution that we're able to say who is doing what, so that we are all pulling towards the same goal. We are all coherent. There is congruence in what we are doing. And it also helps in organizations where there are silos, which is more common than not. Trust me, from having worked with several organizations in strategy, I see that silos are more real than even we're really ready to call it. But it's important then that we pull those silos together to form a coherent movement that says we are all executing in this general direction, and also understanding the interdependencies. If you are pushing a sales and marketing, how is that affecting us in operations? How is that affecting the finances? How is that affecting those who are dealing with the safety, health, and environment? So everybody knows what role they're to play if this ship is going to get us to where we're trying to go. So there's that common, coherent understanding, and there's a common pull. I like to call it a congruent pull. Everybody knows we're pulling in this direction, and that's what execution does. It doesn't allow people to be moving in all kinds of different directions. Strategy will have put the point ahead of us. This is where we are going. That's all strategy is doing. That's why we're saying it's useless without execution. Now, execution is now saying you and you pull in this way, the how, and get to that predetermined position. So that is where we're saying the execution is the one that pulls the alignment. Alignment is not something we can imagine just because on the strategy document we said this is what this department will do, this is what this department will do. That's all on a document. That's all imaginary. Until we execute, until we pull and see who's pulling what and in which direction, are we now talking real alignment. We're talking actionable, real, tangible alignment. Not where there's a beautiful document hidden somewhere. Everybody is busy pulling in their own direction. There's no alignment there. I hope that makes sense. That when we talk organizational alignment, in reality, we can only see it how people execute their strategy. Strategy is saying here, people are pulling and actioning here, in which general direction, towards which general defined goals. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to use execution to fully align everybody. The other one that I feel is extremely important is about continuous growth and adaptability. Whew. Remember earlier we spoke about the world is changing. Whether or not we like it, we're ready to accept it, we define it as such. The world is changing. Change itself is a constant. So how we continuously improve as an organization can only be through action or execution of our strategy. If we're not actioning in the direction of strategy, then we're not improving. The strategy could have articulated the improvement, but the action is the one that actualizes the improvement. If there's no action, it doesn't matter how well we articulated the improvement in the strategy document. There is no improvement in the organization. It's only when we start executing intentionally in the direction of that strategy that we start realizing that improvement. And when we talk about adaptability, it's to say the organization itself is able to then adapt to those changes in the environment. Remember, when we formulate strategy, we talk about external environment, the internal environment, external opportunities and threats, and the internal strengths that we have, the internal weaknesses that we want to curb or build. Build against, I guess. So when you look at that, you have done enough of an analysis of the environment, and we are talking about how we as an organization are going to be pivoting to be adaptable to these realities, environmental realities that we've identified. Now, what I'm saying is, without the actual action, we have not adapted. It means we have clearly articulated all the changes, threats, opportunities, etc. happening in our environment, fully articulated, nicely shelved. We are not adapting. Remember what happened with Nokia, where the CEO ultimately said, we did nothing wrong, but somehow we failed, or somehow we lost. So we don't want to be like Nokia, where we're not adapting, we're not changing, we have maybe recognized the changes happening in the industry or in the environment within which we are functioning. But until we action deliberately to adapt in those changes, then we're going to find the world is sort of past and we are left behind. And that is why we must execute if we are going to, in reality, show that we're continuously improving and adapting. Let's talk about benefits of strategy execution, of mastering strategy execution now at an individual level. Why would it matter to you? We're answering the question, what's in it for me? So I want you to pay close attention, because when we're talking about strategy execution, it's not just at the level of the organization where the benefit lies. Even for you, the first point that I want to bring to attention is career advancement. When you are able, or you're mastering this art of executing strategy. I say it's an art because to execute strategy, you need to work with other people, work with people's emotions, deal with resistance and all of this. So for you to ultimately work through all of that and technically be able to get across to the other side with a successful project, it means then you have performed an artistic thing. So mastering that art of delivering, executing, and bringing results as a professional, it sets you apart, because people know how difficult it is to get teams working coherently, to get resources allocated, all of that. So for you to be able to, at the end of the day, be bringing results, it makes you a valuable asset in any organization. And that is what you must understand with strategy execution. It makes your career advance, because they will look at you and say, here is a person amongst all these leaders. You've set yourself apart as a leader who can actually deliver results, who can make a vision come into reality. So that can help you advance in your career. The other point that I want to bring across on what's in it for you is the enhancement of your skill set. When you focus on mastering strategy execution, like I've just said, one, here is a strategic vision. You are trying to get into reality. First, you have to align people into that strategy, align objectives at your level, align your own action plans, align everybody that you work with, help them align their own daily routine to that bigger vision. That is a skill that you must develop. So if you master strategy execution, this is the skill that you find yourself enhancing, where people on a day-to-day basis, you are constantly helping to align yourself and those that you work with to align with the bigger vision of the organization. That is a skill that you find that by mastering execution, you will have enhanced. The other skill that I feel you will have enhanced is managing resources. We're going to delve deeper into this when we talk about resourcefulness, where you now know how to achieve more with little. And you are no longer part of the pack that's complaining about how can you give me all these projects or these strategic initiatives and you haven't given me the money. You learn the art of resourcefulness, and you take that which you have, whether it's limited time or a small team of people, human resources, or limited finances, and you're able to stretch them and produce a lot. That's a skill. By mastering strategy execution, you'll find yourself actually mastering or enhancing this skill. The other skill that I think you'll develop as you go into mastering strategy execution is leading change. Change is a constant, but not everybody is willing to jump with the change. So for you to be the one at the helm of a change, whether you're instituting a change at your department level, or you're instituting at a division level, or at an organizational level, change is difficult. You're dealing with human beings. Even if we all agree with you at the promises of that project and what that project can do for us to change our daily routine, our daily thoughts and practices and habits, to collectively work towards that goal, or that achieving that project, or delivering those beautiful things that the project promises, it is another story. So for you to be able to lead a change in that way and ultimately deliver the results, that's a skill. So mastering strategy execution for yourself, it enhances your skill of alignment, the skill of managing resources, and the skill of leading change. We'll deal a lot more with change management later, so you can actually know how it's done and why it matters. And the next thing that I feel is important for you, what's in it for you in strategy execution, is leadership recognition. We need people who stand out from the pack. You have many supervisors, many middle managers, many senior managers, but who is going to emerge out of that for leadership recognition when there's an opportunity to lead a project, when there's an opportunity to lead a new division, when there's an opportunity to lead a new department, or anything really? Who is going to emerge as that leader? It's you. When you have demonstrated your ability to translate a vision into action, you've already earned the respect of the leadership. You have earned the recognition from senior leadership. Even for CEOs, MDs, general managers, executive directors, to your own board, you earn your stripes. You earn the respect of your board by how well you are able to turn or translate your strategic vision into reality. So it's important for us to understand that for you to master strategy execution, it's not just to the benefit of the organization. The other one is increased influence. When we normally say, I know that these are normally quotes that people put up on LinkedIn and other platforms where we say your role or your position is not the one that defines whether or not you are a leader. Leadership is about influence. Leadership is about people wanting to follow. So imagine if you are the one who's out here driving organizational success. It means that people are willingly following you. People even come to you for answers, regardless of what your position is. Even people who are above you in organizational role or in the organizational structure can come to you for guidance. They come to you for answers. So leadership doesn't mean you wait to be given a particular role. No, leadership is about, are you able to influence people? You have seen the organization's vision, its goals with clarity. You've seen the objectives with clarity, and you're willing to work with others towards achieving those set goals. What does that do? It gives you influence. It increases your influence. So you are out here, you've positioned yourself as a decision maker and as a driver of organizational success. Who doesn't want that in their team? Even if I may, as your supervisor, be looking at you and I'm a bit sour for 2 minutes, I don't like it. I know who's got the influence here. So I know not to do without you. I know who's driving success in this department. I know who's driving success in this organization, and I'm not willing to do without you. So it increases your influence in that way. The other thing is, like I spoke earlier about the skills that you develop, the more you master strategy execution, because for you to master it, it means you must be the type of person that can pivot, that can work with different problems and unforeseen circumstances and still be able to deliver. So the other thing that I feel you can get that's in it for you is adaptability and innovation. The ability for you to in a sense, change and to match the requirements of the times and the conditions. So that is an art or a skill that you will enjoy for yourself. You are doing it first and foremost in strategy execution, but you're flexing those muscles within yourself, within your mind. You're able to see how you can pivot. You're able to see how you can be creative and innovative to achieve certain things. That even if somebody else takes the glory for your project, those imprints on how you adapted and innovated are with you. They stay with you. You can go sell them somewhere else and say, this is how I adapted and innovated to get this particular thing done, even if somebody else momentarily took your glory. So that is sort of the mindset that I want you to see, that for you, pulling the weight to help that organization achieve its strategy, actioning day in, day out. It's not about the bonus they can give you right here and now. It's not about the glory and the hand clapping that you can get here and now. We will discuss the benefit of the importance of that. However, I'm trying to talk to you about what's in it for you. You are flexing your muscle. You're the one developing the skill of resourcefulness, the skill of leading change. You're the one who's adapting. You're the one who's innovating. You're the one who's stretching the little resources you have. You're given this big project and you're given 2 people to work with. That means you have limited human resources. You then become resourceful. All of that becomes skills, arts, and mindsets that nobody can take from you. That's what's in it for you in strategy execution. The next one that I want to highlight is networking opportunities. If you are, I like to call those people vegetables. I know it's not a good phrase, but there are people who just like to sit on the chair and warm the chair. They come in at 8. They want to scroll through their social media, catch up on who has posted what, barely do 1 or 2 things, feel very good because they've touched the computer 1 or 2 times that day, and then start counting the minutes down or the hours down to when it's 5 o'clock and we are going home. So those people are a different bunch. If you are not busy with strategy execution, meaning if you're not busy with understanding where this organization is trying to go and what actionable steps have been laid down that I can actually begin to implement, if you're not busy with implementing and actioning in the direction that can bring strategic success or organizational success, you are in this bunch of people who are, twiddling their fingers and waiting for, 5 o'clock. When we now talk about you executing, you are now going to find yourself networking with a different bunch of people within the organization and without. People who are high achieving professionals, people who are leaders in their own right. Remember, they are not necessarily leaders because they have a role or a fancy position. No, they are leaders because they are driving success. They're leading change in their corner there. So you will find yourself necessarily networking, rubbing shoulders with high performance individuals. You'll find yourself expanding your professional network because for that thing to get done, you needed to call that architect. For that one to get done, you needed to talk with that consultant. For that thing, so you'll find yourself, because you are in action mode, you find yourself necessarily rubbing shoulders with people who are moving and shaking in their own right. So don't shy away from strategy execution. Don't shy away from putting effort, even if nobody has promised that they'll pay you here and now, because by putting effort even without any fancy promise, you are expanding your network. You are expanding the opportunity for you to network. So those are just some of the examples of what's in it for you. Obviously, there could be rewards and recognition that the company can put for you right there. Some things you can just add on your CV and say, I executed, I did 1, 2, 3, and it's there on your CV. Who can take it away from you? Nobody. Even if we didn't clap for you, even if there was no bonus coming your way, nobody can remove it from your CV. When you sit at the next organization, you can tell them, listen, I was part of what made that place shine, or at least I was part of this project that this is how I made it happen. So that's what's in it for you in strategy execution. I want to discuss now the challenges that we face in strategy implementation. Remember, we did speak about, once that strategy has been formulated and it's beautiful, it's been approved, then we find ourselves somehow not executing on the strategy. So what are some of the issues that transpire when now it's time to execute? The first one is just communication gaps. misalignment of what is being done here or what I'm supposed to be doing here with what is supposed to be done there. When you get to the office, you wonder, okay, as a director, what do I say to people? Do I say to them that they should do this, or should I, this which we agreed in the strategy, or do I communicate that we are continuing with our day-to-day operations? And then usually the day-to-day operations are pressing. The client is knocking at the door, or there's a whole line. Clients are lining up outside. Here we are with all these other beautiful projects, strategic projects that we said we're going to start actioning on almost immediately. So then it becomes a communication nightmare between what are the strategic priorities and what are the operational priorities. What do you say to people? What do you even say to yourself before you can even communicate it to other people? Even as a CEO, you find yourself now with this beautiful strategy that you've presented to the board and is approved. What do you say to your team? Do you tell them to run with those strategic initiatives, or do you allow them to continue working on those operational ones? So in the book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution, I love that book and I would recommend that you read it. It talks about execution and the sort of things which are important for execution to happen. So it is referring to this conflict between operational goals and strategic goals as a whirlwind. In fact, it's referring more to the operational side to say the day-to-day meet deadlines, send those emails, make those calls, assist those clients, patch those fires. It's just a lot. You get lost in this day-to-day whirlwind of meeting our normal deadlines that by the time you check, you're like, oh, it's been 8 months and that strategy initiative is still sitting there. So I'm not working on it because I was taken by this whirlwind. And so usually when we say communicate with your people, it's so they know, when am I working on the normal day-to-day operational stuff? When am I working on the strategy initiative, on the strategic initiative? The way I like to do it, which we'll discuss later, is to find a way to merge our strategic initiatives with what we do to serve our people. Because what is a strategic initiative if it's not serving your clients? Even internal clients, you could be head of HR, you're participating in this. What is a strategic initiative if it's not serving the staff, the people of the organization? So it means then that our initiatives must not be sweet in the sweet and by, well, that phrase that I'm looking for. Yeah, they must be aligned with what we're doing so that they better what it is we're doing. So execution must be brought closer to our day-to-day so that, when we communicate with people to say you are working on this thing, they are able to actually carry that and carry their day-to-day operations along with them. And if it's impossible for you to do the strategic initiative with the day-to-day operations, then you can clearly communicate that there is a project team that is going to be driving this. But even then, who in the day-to-day operations is going to be helping the project team? Because then the project team will come in and find, no, we are dealing with our day-to-day. We don't want to be, challenged by, what the project is doing there. So you also don't want that separation between what the project is doing and what your team is doing. So you see, usually the challenge is the communication gap. Who is doing what? When are they supposed to do it? When do we do the operational one? When do we do the strategic one? It becomes a catastrophe. So everybody needs to understand, when do we leave the whirlwind to grab this that can position our company better, that can deliver better bottom lines, that can deliver competitive advantage? When do we do it versus this? Communication is usually the disaster that comes. And by discussing this throughout the course, we're going to be helping you to see how you master that communication. The other issue is resource constraints. We come back with all these beautiful projects that we call sometimes strategic initiatives, strategic projects that we want to do that will change the game for us, that will take us from the baseline to where we desire to be. Those projects need money, they need time, they need human resources. Usually we are constrained of resources. The people, the human resources who could be working on that project are engaged on this day-to-day delivery of value. And the money that we could be using for that project is now being taken by this fire over here that we're putting off for day-to-day survival of the business. So you'll find that we don't actually have the resources, even time sometimes. When do I knock off and when do I pick up that strategic initiative? So you will find resources of all kinds, time, people, money, even sometimes even, you know, the assets that we need to build towards that strategic goal are not sufficient. So then it becomes a disaster. We're not able to allocate enough resources to that initiative, and therefore the implementation falls off the wayside, or it falls by the wayside. So that is another challenge. The other challenge that we face in strategy execution is resistance to change. That is why we cannot talk about strategy execution and not talk about change management. Resistance to change is because we are working as employees, as human beings. People just have inertia. Organizations then collectively have inertia. This is what we're used to. It's so comfortable here. We don't want to change anything. So why must we change? So when you bring in something that's going to take the company from here to where it needs to be, it constitutes change, and nobody wants change. Men would avoid change by all costs if it was left to us. We just want to maintain comfort. We are naturally wired to conserve that which is good. So we're going to stay in the area that feels good. And normally people would say, if it's not broken, why are you fixing it? Yeah, but we have identified opportunities. We've identified threats in our strategy. They may not have transpired yet, but in time they will transpire. If we don't move to take advantage of this future opportunity, the competition will move in and they will take in market dominance, and then we'll be left like Nokia, bless their hearts, we will be gone. So now you're talking about future threats or future opportunities. People are thinking, if it's not broken now, why are we fixing it? So they would rather stay in their comfort zone and resist change. That inertia, that employee resistance is sometimes more real than the resource constraints that we talked about. Even if they do talk about, you know, we don't have the money, we don't have the time, I'm only alone. If I leave my place to go work on that project, then who's going to be here assisting clients? So we like to exaggerate the resource constraints just so we can preserve the comfort zone, so we can give justification to our resistance to change. That one is a huge one. When we talk about change management later, we are going to be drilling down on this, you know, getting rid of this organizational inertia. The other challenge that comes with strategy execution is lack of accountability. Usually there is no clear ownership even of these strategic initiatives. Sometimes we will throw it and say John is the one who's going to be leading initiative A, and then Mary is going to be leading initiative B. And then Mary comes in, she says, who said I'm going to be leading strategic objective B or strategic initiative B? I don't even know what that initiative is all about. And then John says, I wasn't even there when you guys formulated. Oh, I was there. I tried to voice my opinion and nobody cared to listen. So why are you giving me to be the one leading either objective A or initiatives associated with it? So then there's lack of accountability, there's lack of ownership, and there goes the strategy execution. The people who could be acting on it don't want anything to do with it. If they've been given to, it's been given to them to own, they don't want to be held accountable should it go wrong. Sometimes people even say that I was busy with the operational demands, the day-to-day demands, which usually people feel that's what they're paid for. These newer ones, which are to do with that strategy that you guys went to formulate, are not for me. So you cannot hold me accountable for something that you guys went on a retreat to go and formulate, and now I'm supposed to leave my clients hanging around or leave my team and run with what you guys came with. So this lack of accountability, lack of ownership becomes a disaster. We normally try to engage people a lot in strategy formulation, but that's never enough. Because when the strategy is now being approved, you're sort of, people also get the sense that you're increasing their workload. Why are you adding on this strategic initiative? It's giving us more projects and we're already inundated with the work we're doing. So if it fails, if that strategic initiative fails, don't hold it on me. I'm not going to be held accountable for that. I did my day-to-day operations very well. So that lack of accountability, even at senior management level, it goes all the way. And then unfortunately the CEO has to face the board and all these initiatives are not mentioned. And sometimes even the strategy itself is not mentioned. The CEO just gets in the business of reporting all these operational things that people are doing to the board. And nobody is even brave enough to make mention of, wait a minute, what about the strategy that you came and presented here? Because nobody down would like to take accountability for it. Even the CEO is now shying away from taking accountability for it. So we have to see how to build those accountability structures, that cadence of accountability as we go through this course. And the next point is office politics. Most organizations would not want to admit that strategy execution is killed by office politics. And that's why we normally say culture has strategy for breakfast, or it eats strategy for breakfast. It's because the culture, the day-to-day, what happens when the boss leaves the building? That's how they define culture. What we do around here, that's what we define. How do we define culture? So whenever you have human beings or people gathered, opinions are also gathered there, because opinions are synonymous with human beings. Now, if those opinions are not guided, they are not directed, they are not informed, they just become politics. So it's important that we deal with politics. We don't say, I'm a manager, I'm above politics. No. Your job is to actually inform the opinions, is to direct the opinions, is to guide the opinions. Left unguided, undirected, uninformed, they turn into toxic politics. You are not above it. In fact, you are employed for it. So we need to shift our paradigm around this and be active in dealing with issues of politics, and even having to get rid of individuals who persist in politics despite the interventions put forward. And as leaders of different departments within the organization, the onus is on you not to drive the politics, but to quench, to quiet the politics, to deal and address the politics, to discuss them. When a fellow colleague comes to you to discuss the political issues going on which are hindering progress, don't say, I'm above politics. Your department is so full of politics. We are working collectively. If politics are rampaging the marketing and sales department, where are you going to get money as finance? So stop crunching your numbers. Let's have this meeting and deal with the politics. Address these issues that people have, inform their opinions, direct and guide what the opinion should be and why it should be so that the politics can quiet down. So we shouldn't, as managers and senior managers and executives in the organization, think that politics are above us. To do so is to fail to weed our garden. So organizational politics are a huge deal when it comes to what eats our strategy for breakfast, or what destroys our strategic intent that is so well articulated in that document. The next one is monitoring and evaluation. That one can really be demoralizing if there isn't enough systems that we've put in place to track the success of the initiatives, to track whether or not they're being done, how well they're being achieved. If we don't have a system that monitors that and we actively talk about it, review it, present it, reward it, applaud it, if that system is not in place, then it slowly becomes demoralizing for people to even be putting an effort towards the strategy or executing the strategy. So if the strategy itself is not being monitored, the last time we saw it was at the strategy cascading. Nobody cares to bring up any of those beautiful initiatives. Nobody cares to even remind us of all those goals that we put in there. Why should I bother? God, I've honestly even forgotten myself as a team member. So without monitoring and evaluation, then people lose sight of the strategy, and then that becomes the end of strategy and zero execution. So these are some of the challenges that we see when it comes to strategy execution that really make it impossible for people to execute. When we start discussing, going forward in execution, we'll be making a lot of emphasis, placing a lot of emphasis on building an execution-oriented culture where people know that when we have agreed on something, we actually get on and do it. Are we going to achieve all of it? Maybe not. Are we going to do 100%? Maybe not. but the general culture is towards achieving or actioning the things that we have agreed. So for that to happen, the first thing is leadership commitment. There must be commitment all the way from the board. The board must be in support of you actioning on the strategy, because you are going to be committing finances towards that strategy. You're going to be committing all kinds of resources, time, people. So if the board is not supportive of the execution of the strategy, then you are a goner. So leadership commitment, the CEO, the MD, however you refer to that office, the senior management, all the executives, heads of department, everybody involved, directors, managers, even male managers or senior officers, everybody must be committed to actioning on the strategy, not just committed to that document that we filed nicely. Must be committed to the action, to champion and drive execution. Every day, wake up in the morning and say, how am I championing and driving the execution of the initiatives under my control? There also must be clear communication. We will discuss that in a lot of detail to ensure that the issues that we discussed earlier, who does what and when, how, using what, all that is clearly communicated. What is changed, what is not changed, how are we pivoting, who is pivoting, all of that would need to be clearly communicated in order for the environment to be supportive of execution. The other one is performance metrics. We need to be clear, what is it that we're trying to achieve? Let everybody know what will be the indicator that the thing that we set out to do we have actually achieved. If it's not there, then it's going to be a problem. People need to see, oh, we had set out to do 1, 2, 3. So far we have only done 1. That's fine. At least the metric is there. At least we are sure. The next one is going to be accountability, just empowering people and building accountability, giving resources and holding somebody accountable for the work that they're supposed to do. That is empowering. You've given me resources, you've given me leeway for me to implement, and you hold me accountable. That is empowering if you have built the culture to be around that, and teams know that we're doing this and we're going to be held accountable for the results. The other one is just that continuous improvement where we are adapting, we are giving each other feedback, and etc. So that is the culture that we're trying to build towards, a culture that is execution oriented, not a culture that is politics oriented, a culture that before you know it, everybody, half of the organization is being retrenched, and people are like, whoa, what happened? How can half of the organization be retrenched? How come so-and-so is not being retrenched? You are continuing with politics. You didn't even realize when you drove the company down. Even now when it's going down, you're still in politics. Why are you not being retrenched? Why are we being retrenched for this much? Bottom line is, the company is not doing well and you're being retrenched. So it's important that we address issues of execution to push the company to where it could be, where it is sustainably successful, and you can continue getting what you are expecting out of that organization. And in closing, before I go, I wanted to just highlight at a high level the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. This is a concept that was discussed by Carol Dweck in the US, and it's now well known, and I wanted to bring it to your attention as for a reason, as a leader in your own right, leading yourself, leading your team. So for a growth mindset, according to Carol Dweck, is referring to people whose perspective on life is that the skills that we have are not just talents that you're born with. If you are not born with something, then you can work on it, you can improve through hard work, through learning, through dedication, you can improve your skills, you can improve your understanding, your knowledge, etc. Those are people with a growth mindset. They don't think that you're stuck. People with a fixed mindset, however, believe that abilities are innate and they cannot be changed. So if you are not born with certain abilities, they just believe, you know what? You cannot attain them. So there is a problem. One has a fixed mindset. They believe, I can't learn, I can't improve. What I don't have, I don't have. And usually they don't say that with their mouth. It's just their mindset. It's a way that they see things. It's the way they perceive things and the way they process things. And so somebody with a growth mindset, when challenges come, they embrace challenges. Why? Because they believe we can work through this thing. When they are met with stumbling blocks, they continue to build, they continue to learn, they continue to persist. Why? Because they think we can do it. We don't have stuck abilities. We can improve our abilities, our ability to tackle this thing. So they don't see that effort as they are putting the effort as something negative. No, they see effort as something beautiful that you can, it's enhancing your skill, it's enhancing your knowledge, it's bettering you. Those are people with with a growth mindset. When strategy, for example, is not working, they're thinking we could rework it this way, or we're trying it that way and it didn't work. We could actually learn from that failure and make it better this way. So those are people with a growth mindset. The people with a fixed mindset, remember, they thought, if I don't have the ability to do this, I don't have the ability to do it. I was not born with it. So they don't believe you can learn, you can grow, you can achieve, you can improve your skills. They don't believe that. When they are met with a challenge, they feel like this challenge is exposing them for the abilities that they were not naturally endowed with. Therefore, they avoid challenges by all means. So when you bring in an initiative in the morning, ma'am, or say, I'm bringing this initiative, they're already feeling like you want to expose me. Should that thing not work, we can't improve, we can't learn, we can't make it better, so you will have exposed me for my incompetence or for my lack of skill. That's a fixed mindset. You're already seeing things as it can't be better, therefore don't expose me. That is a problem. So they feel threatened when you bring in these strategic initiatives from your strategy sessions. And therefore you need to understand, even when somebody has that kind of mindset, that they are more determined to hide their flaws and hide their inabilities so that you don't expose them. But people with a growth mindset know that they are not capable of everything under the sun, but they have the mindset that you can learn, you can improve, you can work hard, you can put some effort and dedication, and you can better that skill, or you can better your understanding and ultimately enhance your performance. So when you look at the growth mindset and the fixed mindset, we are encouraging you to go and embrace a growth mindset. Embrace it, because it's when you have a growth mindset that you can now start seeing your ability to adapt. Your dedication, even in strategy execution, will be different from other people, because for you, if it fails, you have a growth mindset. You're thinking, oh, we can learn from that failure, we can better our skill, we can do better, we can improve. But for people with a fixed mindset, when something doesn't go according to plan, they already feel like, oh my God, this challenge is coming to expose us. Remember, we want strategy execution to happen over time, and we've already said over time there are changes. It means when you execute, you are going to be met with different things happening which you never anticipated or which you never saw coming. So your ability to adapt and pivot and keep going requires that you should have a growth mindset, where you see those challenges as opportunities for you to grow, opportunities for you to try something different. So that growth mindset helps with the persistence and the growth that the company needs ultimately. So it starts with you. Even if you do see the characteristics of a fixed mindset in yourself or in some of your team members, it's not to take this and go use it as gossip in the office to say, can you imagine, they taught us that so-and-so has a fixed mindset. No, the idea is to go and embrace a growth mindset and look at ways to embrace that growth mindset, because when we continue talking about strategy execution, it's going to come in very, very handy for you. Well, I hope today's session has been useful to you. You have come to a common understanding of what strategy is and its importance, but most importantly, we've come to see the importance of execution, that strategy alone is useless, and execution without that strategy is also useless. But most of the time, we do formulate strategy. We do have an idea of the general goals that we're trying to achieve. We just lack the execution part, and you've seen that execution is highly critical for the organization to stay competitive, for it to grow and achieve its ideals, as well as for you. It's beneficial for you in your own growth, in your own skills development, in your own career advancement. It's important that you are part and parcel of the team that's actively trying to better the organization and achieve organizational success, hit those strategic milestones, and celebrate on the other side. It's good for you, it's good for your own profile as we go forward. So we're going to be discussing a lot more in this regard, understanding how to curb all those challenges that we spoke about in strategy execution, and how to align you and align other people that you work with in better achieving the strategy, despite the whirlwind of the daily operational requirements.